Hey YouTube, Pat Belliveau here. It is July the 10th, 2021, and this is installment number 3 of my audio-only series. This one is going to be entitled, I don't even know what it's going to be entitled, really. The subject matter is such that because in our neck of the woods, and I think in a lot of places, the whole COVID restrictions have lessened, and so on and so forth. Live music is kind of starting up again, and which is a great thing. As long as it's done safely and everything. But this topic was kind of sparked from I was having lunch with a friend and colleague of mine, actually a fellow I went to high school with, who's a drummer, and he plays in a Celtic trio. And he was contacted by a pub venue that he plays at, or did play at, with some sort of regularity. And they contacted, I don't know if it was him or one of the other band members, and they asked them if they could come and play for free. And I said to him, okay, so they're reaching out to you to play for free. I mean, you haven't worked in like 16 months. And now venues are reaching out for you to come and play for free. I think that's it's kind of a slap in the face. Now, I know if you turned around and said, why are you doing that? Blah, blah, blah. And then they would probably say, well, we haven't had a lot of patrons in because, we couldn't have people in due to COVID and everything like that. We're trying to get back on our feet and everything like that. And it's like, well, yeah, okay, I get that. Don't think I'm unsympathetic to that. I'm not. But by the same token, those of us who are musicians full-time and generate income through this, we haven't worked in 16 months either, really. So, yeah, we're trying to kind of get back on our feet too. So, imagine if you will, if I called up the venue and said, hey, I'd like to come over and have dinner, but I'd like to have a free dinner. I hope you're okay with that. Something tells me they wouldn't be. Now, like I say, I'm not unsympathetic to the venues. So I said to him, maybe if I know that they're trying to get back on their feet and all that stuff, and I get it. A lot of people are, including us. So, but the thing is, if they're reaching out to groups to play for free, maybe they're not ready yet to have live music back in the venue yet. So, maybe a little bit more time needs to pass by while they build up that clientele again and they get people in again, and to when they can start to afford to have live music again. Just a thought. I know that many businesses, including my own, like I'm self-employed, right? I'm a self-employed session musician and teacher and stuff. I've got to build up my financial resources again, right? I mean, God knows this music industry of ours took a hell of a hit. The arts in general took a hell of a hit. So, we have our own rebuilding to do. So, again, I'm not unsympathetic to the venues. I don't want to come across that way. But at the same time that they're trying to run a business, so am I. So, we have to make it work somehow. And like I said, maybe right now is not the right time for some venues to start having live music in them again. I don't know. It depends on the financial situation. Doesn't mean that you won't be. Maybe just it's a little too soon to start. I know everybody wants to get back on track ASAP, but, like I say, there's got to be some rebuilding to be done and all that. So anyway, this is like how, well, what am I going to say here? This is the brunt of, or the main part of what I'm saying here. About this first thing. This particular installment's kind of in 2 parts. There's 2 things I want to feature. And one is this. Funny enough, it's a post that I shared on July 10th, 2017 on Facebook. And I'm posting this because of the fact that music is kind of coming around again and starting to appear in venues and so on and so forth. So I thought that I would just share this with you, and just to put that out there. Again, don't ever think that I'm unsympathetic to the venues. I am not. But there has to be a happy medium here, and it has to be mutually beneficial. When you ask a group to come and play for free, it's not mutually beneficial. It's not. So, it's, for me, this is me personally. It's my YouTube channel. It's my opinion. I know, yes. If I was the venue owner, I don't think that I would reach out to groups and ask them to come play for free. I wouldn't want to do that. I would spend the next little bit of time opening up, getting people back in, getting more money in the till and bums and seats and so on and so forth. And just to get that going, because then I would feel much better prepared to even offer the bands something, right? But to ask them to play for free, especially, when this is something that they do for their job and they haven't worked in 16 months or so, I don't know. That's not something I would even offer up to them. For my own conscience anyway. But so anyway, this is this posting from July 10th, 2017. And this is how I put it on my profile. This is Faceplant, by the way. It says, okay, it's Monday morning. Of course, it's not today, but this is what I wrote in 2017. Okay, it's Monday morning controversy time. I just copied this from the website Music Clout. So Pandora's box lid begins to open in 3, 2, 1, go. Now, the name of this article that I happen to post is called Future of the Industry, Open Letter to Venues. Dear venue owners and managers, you may have noticed a decline in attendance, lower quality of music, and generally unappreciative performers. I feel your pain and have some suggestions for you so that you get the highest quality of music, more attendance, and happiness in your life. We professional musicians, the humble, the great, know we are servants. We bring joy and soul to the darkest corners of downtown and then schlep our axes through the back alleys. Pay us. That's right. Monetary compensation for a service which we have trained for years to be able to provide. Some of us even went to school to better understand the magic that we bring. Do you understand how disheartening it is to watch the doorman go home with most of our cover? Weed out the amateurs. We don't mind. Don't feel you should pay lower quality musicians? We agree. Take a little time to make sure your acts are the real deal. Feel free to listen to the music. Look at our resumes. You are a curator. Next thing, have a decent PA system. If we bring our own PA, it might not be the best kind for your specific venue. We want to sound our best so people are comfortable staying. You want that too. Next thing, feed us. Musicians shouldn't have to spend money to stay standing at a gig. It is common courtesy to provide food. Don't give us drink tickets. It's like giving an allowance to a 23-year-old. It's patronizing to, 1, be paid in beer. Is that how you pay your bartenders? And number 2, have you assumed we are gluttonous drunks? Promote us. This is the next thing. We will do our fair share of promo, but unless you want us to only bring our friends and family, half of which will want to be on the guest list, and none of which will return without us, do a little work. Get us on your website calendar with a picture, mini bio, and link to our website. Put up our flyer in your bathroom. We have fans, but the steady working musicians can't be expected to bring them to every gig. I'm sure there are fans of your venue. Bring them out. What's more, if you can build a reputation for always having amazing musicians, people won't even care who's playing. They will show up. Stop offering us exposure. I guess this kind of has to go with what I was just mentioning about my buddy and his trio. To what are you exposing us? Our own fans who we painstakingly convinced to come support us? Unless you have a large built-in audience, i.e. a festival, that is there to see what great new act you have procured, exposure means nothing to us. Nothing. And if you are running a festival, you should be paying musicians anyway, because that's probably why people are there. Okay, take a deep breath. You are probably pretty angry right now and want to switch to pay to play, just to spite us, if you haven't already. We know that you are running a business. We are too. You need to make a profit. There are expenses. And unless you are happy with a noob garage band who will trash your lovely establishment or drink until horizontal because that is their only payment, we are one of those expenses. You have a right to expect excellence. We want to provide you with quality entertainment. We want people to keep ordering food and drink all night so they stay and watch us. We want to build a rapport with you. So please stop pushing us away by making gigging a miserable experience. Treat us well and we will be your bards, your court jesters, and your geisha. Because, remember, when you are counting on word of mouth, we hold the microphone. With love, a working class musician. Now, I have no idea who wrote that. I didn't. I just shared it. So, yeah, and the other thing that I know things we'll get back to as well is something that it started, I guess, I can't even remember when exactly it happened, but the whole idea of playing for the door. That's something that I don't know what it's like where you are. Maybe you can share what's going on in your particular town or scenario, but I know that there are places here now that, and it's happened probably over the last 5-6 years maybe, that that now venues are, charging a door charge, and that's what goes to the musicians. So, I know, like I say, about 4 or 5 years, well, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, in pretty much any club I played in fact, any club I played in, there was always a guarantee of some kind. And that's gone by the wayside as well. So that's, for me as a session player, well, especially as a band leader, that's not a big draw for me to get groups out. So people in my area, this is probably why you don't see me going into clubs as a leader very much, because you never know what's going to happen. I want to pay my guys a fair wage. I try to hire the best guys in town that I can get at that moment. And because of the fact that they are that status, there's a price that goes with that. And I'm past the point of, at the end of a gig, walking up to my players and giving each of them like $45 in cash for a 3-hour gig. I don't want to do that anymore. And that's happened for various reasons. I mean, we've advertised, within the band a lot, as much as we can. But, if the weather's bad or some sort of playoffs are on or who knows what, there are always those outside things that sometimes stunt your audience as well, the growth of your audience, shall we say, or having your audience show up. So there's that too, right? So quite honestly, I do better as a sideman than I do as a leader most of the time. So, yeah, once in a while I might venture out and do a leader gig at a club, but that's not happening so much anymore. And I've never been a big fan of playing for the door. I do go to venues that say they're going to play, venues that do have the play for the door policy. Most of the time when I get called as a sideman, I get a guaranteed amount that I'm going to get for that night. So at least as a sideman, I know that it's there. Like I know what I'm getting. I know how to budget. Whereas with as a leader, at the end of the night, I get whatever money has been brought in at the door, and then I split it between the guys. And sometimes it's embarrassingly low, depending on the situation. But, I'm not a big fan of that, but I know that that's what's happening now. But anyway, I'd be curious to hear from any of you other people out there that are listening, any other colleagues or, friends, colleagues, or just people who've stumbled across here, whatever town you're in. I'd be curious to know what's the main thing going around in your scene. Is it a play for the door policy, or God forbid it's pay to play? The day that I have to pay a club to come and play in a club, I think that, I don't know, I will either not play in clubs anymore, or I'll sell on my horns for beer or something. I don't even drink beer that much, a little bit here and there, but I think that's like, it's just not it seems like in cases like that, the music industry is just not designed for the artist to make much money at all, or squeak out a living at best. When you throw on top of that things like the nano payments that Spotify and Apple Music and stuff are paying musicians when they have their music posted there. And, I know with my distribution company, they use Spotify and Apple Music and Tidal and Napster and all those, and they're paying 0.003 per stream or download or whatever. So when you consider just the nickel and dime and trickling of the money that comes in, some days you think about it and it's like, it's not even worth it to do this anymore. Although it's something I love to do. So that will always be worth it. But monetarily, I don't know. Sometimes you stack it up and just go, you know what? It's just so not worth it for me to go to do that gig or whatever. And unfortunately, the situation is, I was talking about this the other day. And again, too, please let me know what the situation is in your town or what it was like with what I'm going to say here. I remember back when I broke into the scene here, and I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. When I broke into the scene, it was about 1986. And back then, I was making $100 a night as a sideman, playing big band gigs at the major hotels in town, the West End hotels or Delta or Hyatt or whatever. I was making $100 a night back in 1986. I did a gig 2 weekends ago. It was my first real gig back after COVID. And 8 to 11:30 on a Friday and a Saturday night, I made $125. Now, what other job has only gone up $25 in the last 35 years? If there's another job that I don't know about that has only gone up $25 in 35 years, I want to know about it, because it's not worth it to be in that one either. You can bet cost of living and inflation is not equivalent to $25 over 35 years. So this is the thing. And actually, I was making $125 in clubs, 15, 20 years ago, something like that. So not much has changed, but things keep going up. Gas goes up, food goes up, rent goes up, cost of just doing business goes up, the cost of playing the horn overall just goes up. It just keeps going. Yet the money doesn't. So I guess we have to get to a point where we figure out whether that's acceptable or not. And again, I'd like to find out from you guys what's happening in your particular town. How's it going for you? Like, how was it back in the mid 80s, or when you broke into the scene, however many years ago? What was it like for you? Because it doesn't make sense that playing in a venue, that the money's only gone up $25 in 35 years. Like, seriously? That's just, I don't know. I think about, every time I think about that, I just kind of shake my head, And I know my musician friends and colleagues, we spend as much time as we can trying to be on the top of our game, and you're not just paying us for the time spent at the venue that night, although that's a big part of it. But the fact that we're the ones that got called for the gig, it takes time to be able to get to that point where you're the person getting the calls to do these gigs. A reputation is built, time spent on your instrument, learning it, doing it right, developing the sound, learning about music. I'm one of those guys that went to school, and got a bachelor's degree and half of a master's done to study music, So again, this isn't a rant or a bitch session. It's just, it doesn't make sense to me that I'm only making $25 more a night than I was 35 years ago. If there's another occupation out there that you can think of where the money is that shitty, please let me know what it is. Now, I do it because I love to do it. I mean, I also have my teaching and stuff that I do too. I have to. I can't make a living just doing gigs with that kind of money, right? So we have to make things better for ourselves, I think. So, but the problem is there also has to be solidarity to want to make it better. And that doesn't always work, because there's always somebody, whether they're professionals or whether they're part-timers, weekend warriors, call them what you want, who will come in and say, oh, I'll play for that, right? And maybe they don't think about it, but I don't think they understand that that's damaging, not only to their crowd, but especially to those of us who are actually trying to make a living doing this. This isn't a part-time thing for my friends and colleagues and myself. This is a full-time thing. This is what we're trying to do. And the fact that the money's only gone up $25 in 35 years is pretty ridiculous, I think. Now, I'm not asking for $1,000 a night. No. But it has to be a little bit more in line with how inflation and cost of living has gone up. You know, how are we supposed to be able to make that work? Please let me know. I try my best to budget whatever I can, but again, it's just not. I've said to a few of my students actually that were going into this kind of full time, and I said, you know, the best place to make the money in the music industry is to be the person who's not creating or playing the music. Everybody else makes their money, it seems. But anyway, that's the nature of the business. But as self-employed musicians, you can make it better for yourself. You have your price that you think your abilities are worth, so ask that. If people say, no, that's too much, then you say, thank you very much. That's my price, and have a great day. If you went into a restaurant and ordered a filet mignon steak or something like that, and they said, okay, well, that'll be $25. And you said, well, I only have 15. They're going to say, well, I guess you don't eat the filet then, do you? We have other things here that are maybe more for your liking at $15, right? They're not going to say, oh, you know what? Yeah, okay, sure. We'll give it to you for 15. That doesn't work that way. So it's up to you whether you want you do your business that way or not. I wouldn't. You know, I think if you really have to sit down and say, okay, what are my abilities and my reputation worth? And then you have to put your price on it. Okay. Anyway, moving along to the second thing. Sorry, I get a little bit of a tangent there, but I mean, this is a real important and it's been a very underlying cause and situation now for many years. And I think we collectively have to make it better for ourselves. So I'm at a point where I have my price that I agree on, and I won't go any lower. And that's the way that is. And if you feel that what you have, your abilities, have a certain degree of worth to them, stick to your guns. If they say no, then you say thank you very much. You know, I mean, I hate to say no to work, but you know, I think it was maybe 4 years ago, I still got a call to play for free, for exposure. And what was even more insulting, it was from one of the major banks that we have here in Canada. You know, the ones that make, $8, $10, $12 billion a year in profits, asking me to play for free. Yeah, you can imagine how well that went over. Anyway, I'm moving on to the next thing now. Please leave your comments. And I'll let you know, I have an email address that I'll let you know about, like I did in my other videos. At the end of this, I'll let you know what it is. So this was posted by a good buddy of mine and musician friend and colleague that lives in the city of Edmonton, which is a 3-hour drive north of me. Very fine trumpet player, lead and a great soloist too, named Joel Gray. And he wrote a thing called Professionalism in Music. And he did this because, you know, COVID's on its way out, we hope. So music is starting to creep back in the venues and stuff. And talking about remember how this works and remember what to do as a musician, be professional and all that kind of stuff, because we're getting back into it again. It's been 15, 16, 17 months, whatever it is, since most of us have worked. So he posted this the other day, and I wanted to share this too. And again, you know, feel free to leave your comments or anything like that after. But here's what Joel says, and this is again off of Faceplant. He says, for some silly reason, my Professionalism in Music note is edited when viewed on a phone. Here it is again, and apologies for reposting. So here it is, Professionalism in Music. Getting gigs and keeping them requires more than enthusiasm and chops. It requires professionalism. You may think that using good manners and behaving professionally is common sense, but there are many people out there that just don't get it and wonder why they don't get called for gigs. Yeah, big mystery there, eh? Being a professional musician has nothing to do with how many gigs you get, but how you conduct yourself on the gig. Now, as a sideman, sidewoman, side musician, most musicians start out as side musicians, and some of them remain side musicians their entire careers. It is a great place to learn the business. Here are some tips for how to conduct yourself professionally as a side musician. Number 1, be reliable. There is nothing more disrespectful and frustrating than not showing up for a gig on time. Be ready to perform 20 to 30 minutes prior to downbeat for rehearsals and gigs. If you are going to be any later, call or text the band leader and give them your ETA. Don't make a habit of showing up 5 minutes before downbeat. Number 2, dress up. If you are not sure, err on the side of dressing too formally. It is always better to overdress than underdress for a gig. Number 3, bring all your gear. Remember to bring all the gear you need for the gig. If you forget any gear, music stand, mouthpiece, instrument, etc., let the band leader know and try to solve the problem as quickly as possible. Mistakes happen, but make every effort to fix the problem yourself. Apologize to your bandmates for your mistake and resolve to not let this happen too often, because your reputation will suffer badly for it if it does. And just to interject there, one thing, again, I instill in my students is it takes you years to build up your reputation and mere minutes to destroy it. So be careful with that. Make a checklist of stuff you need to bring to the gig if that helps. Anything to prevent unpleasant surprises. Number 4, be open and positive on the gig. No one likes a downer who whines and complains on set breaks, and especially on the bandstand. Treat every gig like you want to be there and that you are enjoying making music with your bandmates. If something is genuinely bothering you, adopt business-like manners and try to discuss things calmly and reasonably during a set break. If you don't get your way, or your concerns are dismissed, be cool and finish the gig with a smile. The gig is often not the best place to bring up certain issues, so call or email the band leader to arrange a meeting and discuss your concerns in a calm and professional manner. Yep, I'm totally with that one. Number 5, be a team player. This is an important one. Be a good sport about taking directions from the band leader. They're the boss on the gig, and if they tell you to play softer, louder, take fewer solos, play shorter, stay in time, or whatever, make every effort to do so without complaining. If you find the band leader's directions unreasonable, you have the option of not working with them again, but suck it up at the gig and just do the job with a good attitude. The rest of the band will thank you for being a team player, and so will the band leader. Number 6, it's not your party. During a set break, don't assume that you can mingle with the guests or help yourself to any of the food and refreshments for the evening. If you need some refreshments, especially on long gigs, arrange this in advance or ask your band leader. Don't just help yourself. On gig day, stay sober. Don't drink alcohol or get stoned during the gig. Well, duh. But there's always examples, right? A good rule of thumb is that if you aren't okay to drive, you aren't okay to work. It's always a good idea to bring a snack and a water bottle to every gig just in case. Number 7, help out. Always offer to help with equipment setup and tear down after the gig. Don't just pack up and walk out. And you know, I've done that many times too, especially with the drummers because they have a lot of gear and stuff that they have to haul. And a whole bunch of my drummer friends, one in particular, has this certain way that they gather up their stuff, put it on a cart, and take it out into the car. It has a specific place to be. And I found that a lot of times I'm kind of more screwing up the system than actually helping them. But anyway. Number 8, don't promote yourself on the gig. It is unethical for you to give out your own business cards to members of the audience or otherwise promote yourself to potential clients. The ethical problem with promoting yourself on a gig where you are not the band leader is that you didn't have to put in the work to get that gig, and you would be profiting from the work of the band leader, his agent, and or manager. It takes a lot of effort and money to create a band, promote it, make contacts, negotiate contracts, fees, deal with patrons, clubs, companies, etc. Even if someone from the audience comes up and chats you up, asking for a business card because they like the band, you are ethically obliged to direct them to the band leader and not to give out your personal business card. After all, it's the band leader's efforts that made this contact possible. If you do it, you are unfairly benefiting from the work of others without their permission or knowledge. The only ethical way to do it would be with the band leader's express permission and blessing. Now, one thing that's happened to me where I have given out a business card on a gig that was not mine was, and this has only happened maybe 2 or 3 times, I've had somebody come up to me and say, my son or daughter is looking for a saxophone teacher. I'm looking for a saxophone teacher for them. Do you have a business card that I can call you to discuss maybe, getting them to come to see you for some lessons? Then I will give them a business card and say, sure, here you go. Anytime someone's come up to me and say, hey, I'd like to book you guys for blah, 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 whatever thing, whatever future engagement, I always send them to the band leader, always, because it's their group. They're the ones that handle all that. So unless it's something like that, like I say, like lessons, instrument-specific lessons or something, then yeah, if there's anything to do with that particular group and another future gig or whatever, always send them to the band leader. That's the way to do it. Number 9, when and how to promote yourself. If you like the venue and want your own band to play there someday, you have to be very careful not to cross some important ethical lines. The gig is not the place to try and promote your own band or product. This includes going around and asking intrusive questions of the staff, like who hired the band, who is the manager. This is the musical equivalent of corporate espionage or gig espionage. The only ethical way to promote yourself would be to come back to the venue after the gig, and you should try to promote your own band or product without referring to the band you played there with as a side musician. It is also important to consider that if the band leader finds out that you are using the gigs they hired you on to promote your own band, they may not be kindly disposed to you afterwards. Gee, can't imagine why. Number 10, oh no, double booked. If you double book yourself for a gig, the first thing to do is to try and arrange for a sub. Next, call the band leader and let them know the problem and that you are working on getting a sub or have already found one. It is your responsibility to get a competent sub. Only the band leader can absolve you of this responsibility, but you should make every effort to get a sub as quickly as possible. If the band leader doesn't like your choice of sub, make every effort to find a sub the band leader does want without complaint. This applies even for pro bono gigs, and you may have to pay more for a good sub than the gig pays. This is the cost of double booking yourself. If you leave the band leader to find your sub or leave the band just hanging, don't be surprised if people stop calling you for gigs. Number 11, don't overbook yourself. Very few people play well on the third gig of the day. If you show up to a gig tired and worn out, you won't play as well, and you will have trouble being professional. Especially, don't brag to other musicians about how many gigs you've had that day or week and all the money that you're making. Now, this next section is for the band leaders. That's for the side men and women. Here's the band leaders. Being a band leader is a difficult and time-consuming job. Band leaders are often maligned by their side musicians for trivial matters and perceived slights, and it is nearly impossible to please everyone. Here are some tips for band leaders on how to treat their side musicians and earn their continued loyalty and respect. Number 1, details, details, details. Make sure your side musicians have all the gig details: sound check, directions, attire requirements, gear requirements, gig schedule, set lists, charts, and recordings. Well in advance of the gig, check in with your musicians a day or two before the gig and make sure everyone is on the same page. This also gives you enough time to deal with any last-minute crises that may come up. Number 2, sound checks. Don't spring the sound check time on your musicians the day before the gig. This information should be included when the gig is booked so that your musicians can plan accordingly. Make sure sound checks do not run too long and try and use everyone's time effectively. It is always a good idea to pay cartage to your rhythm section because sound checks for them generally take much longer than for singers and horn players. If a sound check runs overtime, do your best to wrap things up quickly and don't make a habit of it. Number 3, the sound check is not a rehearsal. It's okay to run a tune or two, but bear in mind that your band may not be at their best on the gig if you added a long sound check / rehearsal a few hours before the gig. If you feel the musicians need a rehearsal, then book that separately on another day. Number 4, musicians are always hungry. Try to arrange for your musicians to have something to eat or drink on long gigs, being 3+ hours, or between the sound check and gig, if there is not time for them to go home and change and eat. If you cannot, then make sure your musicians know that there is no food or drink being provided and remind them to bring a water bottle and a snack. Number 5, set breaks. Don't cut set breaks short or program outrageously long sets. More than 75 minutes per set is excessive. 50 to 60 minutes per set is reasonable. Set breaks should be a minimum of 15 minutes. Number 6, rehearsals. Don't assume your musicians are free for a rehearsal before the gig, and especially don't spring a rehearsal on them a few days before the gig. If a rehearsal is required, then it should be booked along with the gig and it should be paid. If it isn't paid, then you should mention, when the gig is booked, that there is an extra rehearsal service required for the gig. It is a good idea to break down gig fees into services that include all rehearsals and possibly the sound check. Number 7, charts. Make sure your musicians have the music, charts and/or recordings for the gig well in advance. 2 weeks is usually sufficient. If you get them the music the night before, don't expect that they will have time to check it out. A lack of preparation on your part does not constitute an emergency on theirs. Only spring new charts on your musicians on the gig if you know that they are good readers and don't mind. Number 8. Here's one I think most people would agree with. Money, money, money. Let your musicians know how much a gig pays when you hire them. It is discouraging and uncomfortable for your side musicians to have to squeeze this information out of you. Also, let your musicians know exactly when you are paying them for the gig. If you say nothing, then the expectation is that you will give them a check or payment immediately after the gig or the next day at the latest. And in this day and age with, email money transfers and stuff, there should be no heavy delays to get the money in, unless you have to chase down the club owner. But then keep the lines of communication open with your band and say, look, I got to chase this guy down. I'll get back to you as soon as absolutely possible. Anyway, if payment is delayed, here we go. If payment is delayed, please let them know when you'll be paying them and why there is a delay. Lack of communication breeds resentment. Oh, there you go. If there is a problem with the contractor, just keep your musicians in the loop. Stuff happens, but if this happens to you more than once, you will lose the trust and respect of your musicians. Always have a contract for a gig and work hard to ensure your musicians are paid quickly. Number 9, and this is the last one. Dealing with side musicians. If a side musician comes to you with a request or a problem on the gig, then listen and acknowledge their concern. You will have to decide whether or not this is a problem that can or should be dealt with on the bandstand. Regardless, adopt business-like manners and let them know what, if anything, you intend to do about their problem or concern. Don't ignore it. So to tie it all together, here's his last comments. It can be hard for a side musician to put themselves in the shoes of the band leader and vice versa, especially for career side musicians and career band leaders. But if you are consistently professional, you will earn the respect and admiration of your fellow musicians and undoubtedly work more often than those who are not. Best of luck. So, yeah. So anyway, as I was saying, I would like to, if you guys have any comments or follow-up that you'd like to add, I'd like to hear what you have to say, and I'll address this in another installment. I can do a follow-up installment to this if you want to. The email address that's tied to my YouTube channel here is youtube@belltones.ca. YOUTUBE at Belltones, BELLTONES.ca. And I will answer emails quickly if you need me to get back to you. I might just, the next installment, I might just say, okay, here's an email from so-and-so about the last thing we talked about that said blah, blah, blah. Whatever. But anyway, I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about what I read to you tonight and, your thoughts and from like whatever city you're in or whatever scene that you're in and let me know what's happening within that scene if you're experiencing a similar thing that we are here. Or is it worse or is it better, so on and so forth. So maybe there's ideas out there that we can put forward to some of the establishments here. I don't know. Who knows? But anyway, I guess that's maybe a little bit of controversy. Again, too, I just wanted to put this forward and get a dialogue going. I'm not trying to jump down anybody's throat or whatever, but, with COVID kind of hopefully on the way out for the most part, and music venues starting to have live music again, we're getting back into the gigging thing. I know for me, I've been very fortunate that the phone's been ringing not too badly over the last little bit. So it's so good to get back out and playing again. So, it's always nice to, to have a reminder about, don't forget that to do this and this and this and make sure that you take care of business before the business takes care of you kind of thing. So anyway, I'm happy to share that kind of stuff with you. And like I say, give me some feedback if you have any. YouTube@belltones.ca. Okay, thank you for your time, everyone. I think this is the longest one out of all of them that I've done so far. But anyway, took me that long to get it all in. I hope you're all well, and I hope everything's going well for all of you. And those of you that haven't been working over the past 15, 16, 17 months, I hope that things are turning around for you. And we'll talk soon with the next installment of my audio-only series. Again, this is July 10th, 2021. I'm Pat Belliveau. Thanks for stopping by and checking it out. And take care. Bye for now.